This video is created by Jagrat Creation. It is on redemption of debentures. I have selected one sum on redemption of debentures which was asked by institute in its examination. Observe the sum on the screen which I intend to solve. This is the sum which I wish to solve. Progressive Limited issued 10 lakh 6% debenture stock at par on 1st of January 2014. Interest was payable on 30th June and 31st of December each year. Under the terms of debenture trust, the owned stock is redeemable at par. So all this debenture stock is redeemable at par. Trust deed obliges the company to pay to the trustees on 31st of December 2014 and annually thereafter sum of rupees 1 lakh to be utilized for redemption and cancellation of an equivalent amount of stock which is to be selected by drawing a lot. So from 31st of December 2014, from that date onwards, every year annually 1 lakh rupees debentures are going to be redeemed. For that, company is supposed to pay. The debenture trust is 1 lakh, so that debenture trustees can redeem debentures of rupees 1 lakh by drawing a lot. Alternatively, the company is empowered as from 1st of January 2014 to purchase its own debenture in the open market. This debenture must be surrendered to the trustees for cancellation and adjustment for accrued interest recorded in the books of accounts. In any year, the nominal amount of the stock surrendered under this alternative does not amount to 1 lakh, then the shortfall is to be paid by company to the trustees in cash on 31st of December. Now see. So what is the first option? Every year company has to give 1 lakh rupees to debenture trustees. Debenture trustees will redeem debentures by drawing a lot. That's the first option. Or alternatively, during the year, company can purchase its own debentures. And the moment the own debentures are purchased, they are to be cancelled. That's an important point. They are to be cancelled. Why I say that they are to be cancelled immediately? Because you are asked to prepare necessary accounts in which you are required to prepare debenture stock account and you are required to prepare debenture redemption account. So moment the debentures are purchased, own debentures purchased, they are to be redeemed. So instead of preparing own debenture account, in this sum you are asked to prepare debenture redemption account. So the debenture redemption account is exactly same as purchase of own debenture. Generally in the sum, other than this, what we do when the own debentures are purchased, own debentures account debit to cash or bank account credit, X interest price is to be recorded. Then these own debentures are kept for some times. After some time they are being cancelled or they are kept as sinking fund investment. But here in this sum you are told that instead of preparing own debenture account, prepare debenture redemption account. So moment the debentures are purchased, it is cancelled. That's an important point to be understood and that's the interpretation of this one also. The following purchases of stocks were made by the company. In the year 2014, 1,20,000 stock was purchased, so debenture redeemed to the extent of 1,20,000 on the date of purchase. That's the first thing. In the second year, company has purchased 75,000 debentures only, and the annual redemption has to be 1 lakh. So 75,000 are the debentures own debentures purchased and cancelled by the company. So by the end of the year, company has to pay 25,000 rupees to the debenture trustees, and debenture trustees will redeem debenture of face value 25,000 by drawing lots. In the third year, company has purchased 1,15,000 debentures. So own debentures purchased and cancelled 1,50,000. So no need to pay anything to the debenture trustees because redemption of minimum 1 lakh rupees redemption has occurred during the year. So on the basis of this, understand these things, that the annual redemption required is 1 lakh. In the year 2015, 75,000 debentures are purchased and cancelled. So shortfall paid by the company to the trust is 25,000. This is an important point. Another important point that you should notice that here the accounting year ends on 31st of December. That you should understand by interpretation of the details of the sum. Because you are given opening balance on 1/1/2014, interest is payable on 30th June and 31st of December. In light of this, You have to understand, interpret that the accounting year ends on 31st of December, and we are required to prepare accounts for 3 years, for 2014, 2015 and 2016, and these 3 accounts are going to be prepared. This debenture stock account is a debenture liability account. This debenture redemption account is a substitute of own debentures purchased, and debenture interest is the amount of interest paid by the company on the liability for a tenure during which the liability existed. So ignore the cost and ignore cost and taxation. So purchase price, so amount paid, brokerage paid, they are to be ignored. Taxation details are also required to be ignored. Now in light of that, let us start preparing all these 3 accounts. I am going to explain you all this transaction one by one in detail. I am going to write down the journal entry, and after writing the journal entry, I am going to go for posting. At the end of the sum, I will show you the journal entries that has been explained to you while solving the sum. Let us start now. So this is debenture stock account, debenture interest account. Debenture redemption account means purchase of own debentures account. Understand one thing. Now, Progressive Limited issued 10 lakh debenture 6% stock on 1/1/2014. So opening balance on 1/1/2014, debenture liability 10 lakhs. Interest is payable on 30th June and 31st of December. Let me write down at the top so that I can remember it while recording the transaction, so that I may not miss the transaction of debenture interest. Now let me start with the accounting for 2014 from the given details. So in 2014, on 30th September 2014, 1,20,000 nominal value stock purchased at 98, at a price of 98. Here you are given X interest. So this X interest purchase is given, implies that these 2 purchases are cum interest. That's an interpretation. So on 30th September 2014, 1,20,000 face value own debentures stock purchased at a cum interest price 98. That's the interpretation. Now before 30th September, before we record the transaction, look at the interest date. So before we purchase debenture stock of our own company, we have to pay interest on 30th June, because interest date has to be considered before we start recording any transaction. That's an important point students should always understand when it goes for accounting for redemption of debentures. So debenture interest on 30th June 2014 at the rate of 6% for 6 months. 30,000 is the debenture interest. Debenture interest account debit to bank account credit. That's the journal entry. I don't write narration, but I spell out the narration. At the end of the sum, I'm going to demonstrate all this journal entry at one place, but in that also I'm not going to write narration. But you can write narration in examination in your own language. Debenture interest account debit to bank account, being debenture interest paid. Now 30th September, own debentures are purchased. 1,20,000 is the face value. 98 is the cum interest price. So let me prepare a working with interest price 98%. Now, when we purchase the debenture or security or fixed income bearing security, when we purchase it, we have to pay interest till the date of purchase, starting from last date of interest payment. That you have studied even in investment account in IPCC group 1. So here also cum interest is there. The purchase has occurred on 30th September. Last interest was paid on 30th June. See, 30th June last interest was paid. So 3 months interest has to be paid at the time of purchase of debenture. And this price is with interest. So 3 months interest from 30th June to 30th September. 1,20,000 into 6% into 3 months. So this is the debenture interest paid. So X interest purchase price is 1,17,600 minus 1,08,000. Now 1,15,800 is the X interest purchase price. Normal journal entry that student record is, this is the purchase of own debenture. Own debenture account debit? No. In this some own debenture purchased or immediately debenture redemption takes place. So instead of preparing own debenture account, here debenture redemption account is prepared. So instead of debiting own debenture account, debit debenture redemption account. Debenture redemption account debit. This is the interest paid for 3 months. So debenture interest account debit. This is a total payment made 1,17,600. So let me write down the journal entry first of all. Debenture redemption account debit, debenture interest account debit to bank account credit. Let me go for posting. Debenture redemption account is debited. Debenture interest account is debited. Bank account credit, that I don't write, don't post. Now, the moment the debenture redemption, so debentures are purchased, so debenture is to be cancelled. How to cancel the debenture? Debentures account debit to debenture redemption account credit. So debenture stock account debit to debenture redemption account credit. So this is how cancellation entry has taken place. Now after recording this entry, what is next to be done? 1,20,000 liability is paid by making payment of 1,15,800. So what you have to do? Here the debentures are paid. In the 2014 debentures redeemed 1,20,000, more than 1 lakh. So requirement is finished. So let me find out the closing balance. So that closing balance become opening balance. Because on 31st of December, interest is going to be calculated on 8,80,000 because debentures are already cancelled. See, the debenture cancelled 1,20,000. At the time of purchase, 3 months interest is paid. After purchase, immediately they are cancelled. So no subsequent 3 months interest is payable. So now the debenture interest is to be paid on 8,80,000 for 6 months. That is on 31st of December. So similarly, 1,20,000 liability is paid by 1,15,800. So gain is transferred to capital reserve. So 4,200. So debenture redemption account debit to capital reserve account credit. So this is how cancellation takes place. Gain on cancellation is transferred to capital reserve and journal entry thereof is being recorded. Now these are the entries to be recorded on 30th September. Now you have to pay debenture interest on 31st of December. So debenture interest is to be paid on 31st of December. That is to be paid for 8,80,000. Remember, 1,20,000 debentures are purchased. At that time, 3 months interest is already paid. Debentures are cancelled. Now these debentures are no longer existing. So no debenture interest is payable from 30th September to 31st of December for the debentures that has been cancelled. So now you have to pay 6 months interest on the balance debenture 8,80,000. So 8,80,000 into 6% into 6 by 12. Debenture interest account debit to bank account credit. So debenture interest account debit to bank account credit. So this is how these two accounts are closed. Now I'm required to close debenture interest account. The debenture interest total will be transferred to profit and loss account. So profit and loss account debit to debenture interest account credit. I just spell out this entry, but I don't write, just tolerate it. So what is the entry? Profit and loss account debit to debenture interest account credit 58,200. This is how accounting for 2014 is being done. Now let me start with 2015. Now in 2015 on 31st of May, 75,000 debentures are purchased. Opening balance are recorded. Here opening balance is recorded. This account is closed. This account is also closed. So 75,000 debentures are purchased. On what date? 31st of May. What are the interest dates? 30th June and 31st of December. So 31st of May, the day on which the 75,000 own debentures are purchased, that is before 30th June. So let me write down first of all the purchase entry. Here 95 is the ex-interest price. Now on 31st of May 2015, 75,000 debentures are purchased. This is an ex-interest price. So 75,000 into 95% is the ex-interest price which is going to be debited to debenture redemption account. Interest for 5 months is to be paid at the time of purchase. Because the debentures are purchased on 31st of May, last date of interest was 31st of December. 31st December to 31st of May, 5 months. So 5 months interest is to be paid. And that works out to be 1875. So total payment is 71,250 plus 1875. 73,125. The journal entry for that is debenture redemption account debit, debenture interest account debit to bank account credit. Now these debentures are purchased on 31st of May. Remember, 5 months interest is paid. After making interest for 5 months, debentures are cancelled. Debenture redemption has occurred. So now no next interest for next 1 month and subsequent 6 months interest is payable on this 75,000 because the debentures are cancelled on 31st of May. That's an important point. So let me debenture redemption account debit, debenture interest account debit to bank account. Now 75,000 cancel, so debenture stock account debit to debenture redemption account credit. Now you have to strike the closing balance over here. But you can't strike closing balance right now because here the 1 lakh rupees must be redeemed every year. Here only 75,000 has been redeemed. So yet 25,000 will be paid on 31st of December to the debenture trustees. And after redeeming those 25,000, this debenture account can be closed. So it cannot be closed right now. But here the cancellation is taken place. For that, find out the capital reserve. 75,000 liability is paid by 71,250. So 3750. Debenture redemption account debit to capital reserve account credit. This is how the gain on redemption of debenture is transferred to capital reserve. This entry is recorded. So 31st of May entries are done. Now I am required to pay interest on 30th June. On 30th June, I am required to pay interest on 8,80,000 minus 75,000. 8,80,000 minus 75,000. 8,05,000 into 6% into 6 by 12. This is the interest to be paid on 30th June. And the same interest is payable on 31st of December because there are no other transaction till 31st of December. So I am going to write down the entry for debenture interest account debit to bank account. This is the entry recorded on 30th June. And on 31st of December also the same interest is going to be paid. So debenture interest account debit to bank account. So total debenture interest as on 30th June and 31st of December is recorded. This is how debenture interest entry is done. Now, as per the requirement of the trust, is 25,000 rupees to be paid to the company. So debenture trustees are required to be paid 25,000, and by payment of this 25,000, debentures to the extent of 25,000 will be redeemed. So the journal entry for that, debenture stock account debit, 25,000 to debenture redemption account credit, and debenture redemption account debit to bank account credit. So company paid 25,000. By that, these 25,000 debentures are redeemed. That's an important point to be understood. Now you can strike the closing balance of debenture account. That becomes opening balance for the next year. At the end of the year, the total debenture interest is to be transferred to profit and loss account. So profit and loss account debit to debenture interest account credit. As I told you, I have not written this journal entry. I spell out and understand it. But in examination, suppose if you are required to write down all journal entries, write this journal entry profit and loss account debit to debenture interest account credit 50,175. Now let us start with 2016. On 31st of July, 1,15,000 debentures are purchased at 92. Own debentures are purchased 1,15,000 at a cum interest price 92. But before 31st of July, 30th June interest rate turns up. So you have to pay 6 months interest on the debenture outstanding. So let me first of all pay debenture interest for 6 months. So 7,80,000 into 6% into 6 by 12. Debenture interest account debit to bank account credit. So debenture interest is paid. Now on 31st of July, this 92 is a cum interest price. So this price is with interest. From that you are required to reduce the interest. The interest is to be paid at the time of purchase of own debentures. For what period? Till the date of purchase. Starting from which date? Last date of interest. What was the last date of interest? 30th June. What's the date of purchase? 31st of July. What is the period for which the interest need to be paid? 1 month. So here, this is a with interest price. 1 month interest is to be worked out. 30th June to 31st of July. 1,15,000 into 6% into 1 by 12. So X interest purchase price is 1,05,225. Debenture redemption account debit, debenture interest account debit to bank account. Redemption account debit, debenture interest account debit to bank account. Now 1,15,000 debentures are redeemed, so debenture stock account debit to debenture redemption account credit. So stock account debit to debenture redemption account credit. Profit on redemption of debenture will be transferred to capital reserve. So how much is the profit on redemption of debenture? 1,15,000, 1,05,250. And here the redemption of 1 lakh, more than 1 lakh redemption is occurred. So you can strike the closing balance here, 7,18,000 minus 1,15,000. So this is the closing balance. On this closing balance, we will be required to pay debenture interest at the end of the year. But before that, let me find out the amount to the capital reserve. So this is a gain on redemption. So debenture redemption account debit to capital reserve account credit 9775. This is how this account gets closed. Now at the end of the year, you are required to pay interest for 6 months on 6,65,000. So 6,65,000 into 6% into 6 by 12, 19,950. So debenture interest account debit to bank account credit. Debenture interest account is debited for the interest paid on 31st of December. This interest is payable only on 6,65,000 because 1,15,000 debentures are purchased and immediately cancelled. So now this debenture interest will be transferred to profit and loss account. So profit and loss account debit to debenture interest account credit 43,925. This is how redemption of debenture is done. How the redemption is made? Own debentures purchased and immediately cancelled. That's an important point. And when the debentures are cancelled, then no interest is to be paid for subsequent period after cancellation. That is also an important point to be noticed when you go for accounting for debenture interest. This is how I have tried to explain you this sum. Now I want to demonstrate all journal entries at one place for your better understanding. If you want to copy, you can do that. So look at the journal entries. These are all journal entries that I have explained to you. Remember, in all these journal entries, I have not written narration, one thing. And transfer of debenture interest to profit and loss account is also not recorded by me, as I have told to you. So all these entries, this is one by one. I have given the numbers of these entries while solving the sum. I have tried to explain you this sum. I feel that you have followed all these things. Thanks to all.